Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the Peace River Town Council regular meeting for Monday, September 11th, 2023 to order at 5 p.m. And before we get underway this evening, I'm just going to read to everybody a post that went up on the town social media page, and it reads as follows. We are terribly sad to announce the passing of former Peace River Mayor Michael Proctor. Mayor Proctor passed away on August 31st, 2023 at the age of 84. He was first elected to his mayor role in 1986 and then was acclaimed to that position in 1989, 1992, and again in 1995. After his time in Peace River, Mayor Proctor moved to BC, living most recently on Vancouver Island. His service to our community and residents had a major positive impacts that we continue to benefit from today, including the significant role he played in the pulp mill being established here in Peace River. Our thoughts and prayers are with Mayor Proctor's family and friends. Last week, we lowered the flags to half-mast in recognition of his contribution to our community. At this time, I would like to ask everybody to please rise for a brief moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call upon Larry Herniak, who's going to say a few words on behalf of the town.
Good evening, councillors. First of all, we'd like to thank Councillor Ford for asking me to address council and the public with respect to the demise of the town of Peace River's former mayor, Michael Proctor. Michael came to the Peace River area as a Chrysler sales representative for Chrysler itself. Later, he, together with two other individuals, purchased and started Chrysler dealership in the town. During this time, Michael took an active role in the community, serving as president of Peace River Curling Club, president of Peace River Golf Club, and is a member of Rotary. Michael's largest contribution and accomplishment, I submit, is his role as a member of the Peace River Town Council. He served as mayor after Gary Friedel's term as mayor. And during his term as mayor, I would say he had three advantages at that time to serve as mayor for the greater benefit of Peace River. The first advantage was that Michael was a confirmed bachelor, and as such, he did not have to worry about family, and being a bachelor, he was financially independent to serve as a full-time occupation as mayor. As this council knows, the payment for council services were not substantial, and luckily, Michael had sufficient financial wealth to live without having to obtain and subsist on the paltry sum that the mayor was being paid at that time. I'm advised that Michael donated all his council earnings and remunerations to various town charities. The second advantage that Michael had a strong, united council that had a common purpose for the benefit of the town. His council worked together for the greater benefit of the town without Michael having to worry about political backstabbing that some council experience. The third advantage, and probably his greatest advantage, was that Michael was a political animal. And his friendship with the then MLA Alastair gave him direct contact with the premier and cabinet, pushing the town's needs to the provincial government attention. Michael, together with Alastair, were instrumental in having the operation known as DMI at that time, obtaining the forest management agreement and having the area sawmills operations agree to such a large timber operation being granted. Michael consistently was pushing the town's needs to the premier and cabinet. I remember one time when I was fortunate to be on a Peace River trip with Michael and then Premier Ralph Klein. Well, you should have seen Michael talk off Klein's ear. Poor Klein probably could not wait to get off the boat. Michael had a love of travel, and often he would advise that he was off to London, England, to see a play, or to to New York to see a musical. I remember him taking a trip to the Antarctica to see the penguins. I just shook my head as to why someone would take a vacation there during the summer. Michael left Peace River shortly after his time as mayor of this town and moved to Bowser, BC, near Qualicum on Vancouver Island. He had a house on the ocean front. You could see the outline of the city of Vancouver across the ocean strait. And of course, all the cruise ships that cruise by on the ocean in front of his residence. His passion for service continued, and he became the district governor for Rotary for Lower BC area and Upper USA. He was a man that always was looking to serve his fellow mankind. Michael Proctor did have one or two faults, in my opinion, in that he loved to speed was one of them. He drove a Chrysler minivan like he was driving a Ford Mustang. He did not believe in anyone passing him except the gas stations. The takeoff from a stoplight or red light was a drag car start. Riding with him as a passenger was hanging onto your seat continuously. He was in his youth a race car driver, and thus had the confidence to drive like one. The second fault was his temper. I'm advised by his former partner, Ian Gardner, that AGT, as it then was, sent him a little phone with a sticker saying, "Treat me gently," since he slammed the phone receiver down so many times that AGT had to replace the phones at the Chrysler dealership. He loved to golf, and I have to say I was never able to beat him when we had our annual trip to San Diego. Golfing was a passion for him. Unfortunately, he was unable to continue due to his problems with his knees. Lastly, I have to relate a story with respect to Michael's well-known sense of sarcastic humor. I had surgery on my rear end, and Michael asked my wife Brenda if I recovered from my brain surgery. We all appreciated that joke, some neighbor I had. As members of this council and employees of Peace River, you contribute countless hours of service to the well-being of the town. The public hardly appreciates the time and effort you put in. However, they sure know who to blame if anything goes wrong. Michael was a respected member of the Council of Peace River, and sometimes the public let Michael know of their displeasures. Now that it has been known that he is passed, the public have now expressed to me and citizens of my era the appreciation of Michael's effort and service to our beloved Peace River. Michael had no children and survived by his two nieces and one nephew, children of his deceased twin sister. His father was a doctor who was killed in World War II, and his mother raised Michael and his sister in the Vancouver area. To the best of my knowledge, Michael has asked his ashes be interred in the Peace River Cemetery. Thank you, Michael Proctor, and rest in peace. And thank you again, Council, for allowing me to say a few words on behalf of the citizens of Peace River. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hernia, for those kind words. Moving forward, we have the adoption of the agenda. Acting CAO, is there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There are none, Deputy Mayor.
Would anybody care to make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Good, all in favor? And that is carried. Next item, we have the minutes of the August 28th, 2023 regular council meeting. Is there any errors or corrections that need to be made? Seeing none, would anybody be prepared to adopt the minutes of the August 28th, 2023 regular council meeting as presented? Councillor Carr, all in favor? And that is carried. Seeing no public hearings, no presentations, no bylaws, no unfinished business. The next item on the agenda is new business, IDP referral from Northern Sunrise County with Director Moody.
Good evening, and I'd just like to clarify that I am no longer an acting director, actually just manager of planning, and I'm very happy that that's true. Okay, I'm here to present on a referral from Northern Sunrise County, which we received in August. The county has referred an amendment to their municipal development plan to the town, which they are required to do under our mutual intermunicipal development plan. That amendment to their MVP proposes two policy changes. First, it defines and provides policy direction with respect to commercial alternative energy type developments. And secondly, it amends the policy direction of the MVP related to the development of confined heating operations. The exact wording of the amendments is attached, but for both development classes, the major effect that the amendment would have is that it sets direction for the county that they do not support any of those types of developments within 1.6 kilometers of any town, hamlet, village, or residence. The effect of that is that majority of the white area of the county where their majority of the human settlement is an area where they would not support those types of developments. You can see the impact, I believe it's yes attached as schedules to their bylaw. So it's really just primarily some areas in the north where the lands would be open and the county would support those types of developments with small pockets on the periphery in a couple of different spots. And that being said, the county isn't actually the decision maker on these types of developments. So in both cases, section 619(1) of the MGA would apply, and the decision-making authority on these types of developments is either the NRCD or the AUC. So those bodies would be the ones that would make decisions based for these types of developments in the county. If they were approved at those bodies, then the county would have the option to appeal. They would appeal on the basis that their MVP doesn't support that. And where that would fall is not for me to predict. But so that is the direction that the county is setting for itself. Based on the fact that this is a county decision for the land use within their area, we do have two options before council. The first is to direct council administration to respond to the county that we do not have any feedback regarding their proposed bylaw. And the other would be for council to direct administration with respect to what feedback to provide the county regarding the proposed bylaw. It is our recommendation that council directs us to provide that we have no feedback to the county on the basis that this is an initiative within our neighboring jurisdiction that will have minimal impact on the town. I can take any questions that council might have.
Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, would anybody be prepared to make the motion? Councillor Good.
I'll move the recommendation that council direct administration to respond to Northern Sunrise County that the town has no feedback regarding the proposed bylaw E422/23.
All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Next, under new business, request to place a telecommunication tower on town-owned lands, lot 65 MR, block 4, plan 9120019. And Ms. Moy.
Thank you. Yeah, so the town has received a request from Evolved Surface Strategies, who are working to find a location for a telecommunication tower on the west side of Peace River for a telecommunication company. They've been reviewing a number of locations. They've requested initial feedback from the town on those locations. This is one of the locations on their list. They are scraping the bottom of the barrel for their first round of locations that they're looking at. And so they are required through the process to come to the town to ask if we are willing to entertain the development of a communication tower on this lot, which you can see on figure 1 is highlighted in blue. This is the town taking our landowner hat and putting that one on right now. We're not acting as a development authority here. This is just, do we who own this land, are we interested in entertaining the possibility of a telecommunication tower here? That would mean that we'd enter into a lease if it worked out, and would receive an annual fee of a certain amount that we would have to negotiate. So this is part of their internal initial process between the telecommunication company and the location sourcing company. If we were to say yes, then they would continue their internal process to make sure that a communication tower would actually work in this location. And if they wanted to proceed after that, then they would have to undergo the federally mandated process before they could construct it here. So during that process, the town would have another kick at the can in terms of feedback. There would be a public process that's involved. And as the development authority, we would be required to provide concurrence or non-concurrence on the site from a development perspective. So that's the development perspective hat that would come into this process later on. Here, we're talking about the landowner hat that we all need to wear at the moment. That being said, the proposed tower is expected to be a 60-meter self-supported structure, so it is quite tall. If you look at this, the elevation information that we have on our web map, the top of the tower would be getting close to the top of Misery Mountain. And this site is between the Saddleback residential neighborhood and Misery Mountain. So it would be quite, I think, a noticeable thumb or structure between the residential neighborhood and one of our natural areas. The site is also immediately adjacent to a stormwater pond and is a low-lying area, so probably subject to being quite wet at certain times of the year. And it is also immediately adjacent to where we have a trail running through this parcel. So on the basis of those facts and the direction that is set in our land use bylaw, which we did update in January 2023 and indicated our preference for sites that are not near to environmentally sensitive areas or residential neighborhoods. It's not a preferred site in administration's mind, and it would be our recommendation that council declines to place one at this location at this time as the landowner. This would do is it essentially allows the company who's looking for sites to strike it off their list, and then they'll go back to the drawing board and we would be looking at a broader area of the West Hill. So they won't be surprised by a negative in this case, and it doesn't mean that it's going to stop the process. It just means they're going to look to other spots, which may be more preferable from the town's perspective. So that is our recommendation for moving forward. I can take any questions that you might have.
Just one question from myself. So that area in figure 1, so that is quite a, like, from the street, you actually have to walk downhill quite a ways. Is that am I in the right area?
Yes, there is so basically we're Misery Mountain. We've got our trailhead there. You'd have to walk
Okay.
south from there. And there is a naturalized trail there. It's not a paved trail by any means, but there is a trail network that runs through that area on public lands. So it does provide some recreational access between those areas to the residents.
Any other questions or concerns from council?
Yeah.
Councilor Carr?
Did we provide them with the preferential list that the administration suggested? And they still chose this one, even though you gave them better choices?
So the way the process has worked so far, they came to us with a list of about 10 sites, and we gave them some initial internal feedback about what our preferences would be. They have worked through that list and have come up with nothing. So in terms of what they need landowner support. So for any parcel that's a privately held lot, it's a no-go for them if that private landowner says, I don't want it there. And that is what they have run into, in addition to some of the other sites that had other reasons that they were not feasible. So this one is technically a municipal reserve site. They also flagged some environmental reserve lots. The designation of environmental reserve immediately struck that off their list. So there's a lot of constraints in the area and no denying it, but this means that they will then go back to the drawing board and look for other sites that are outside of their initial search area.
Councillor Scanlon, then Councillor Good.
So. Yeah, like that, what you said brings up another question, but I'll deal with the original one. So even if we were to say yay today, it's very unlikely it would go further than the development process anyways, once it came back around to that, given it's adjacent to, you know, a riparian area or environmentally sensitive, you know, trail, all those other things. So in us saying no, we're kind of saving them time and walking down this path only to just hit a dead end later anyway.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I don't want to guarantee that the process wouldn't end up allowing them to develop there, because ultimately we're not the development authority at that point. Our control rests with the fact that this is our land.
Yeah.
When they went through the process that the federal government requires, I suspect that the neighborhood would not be super excited about a telecommunication tower in their backyard, essentially. So there probably would be some negative public feedback. But ultimately, that doesn't mean that they couldn't end up building it, but it's also entirely possible that it would play out that way, where this site would in the end not actually work out well, and it would just be a waste of time on everybody's part. I do suspect that that's the more likely scenario. And there are other sites where we're, as the municipality, more likely to be in a position to give the letter of concurrence, which the federal government does look for as a part of their approval process.
Begging everyone's pardon, I'm gonna follow up. Is there any, like, I'm happy to lease these guys a piece of property and, you know, generate some revenue. Do we as a town have any property that would be better than this one? Like, like right next door here?
Right next door is not our land. In fact, we lease it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
That's definitely a conversation that we'll be having with them. Can't say for certain that there is a site that works for them and works for us. But that would be something we'd be exploring.
Councillor Good.
I think also in your comments, if I understood correctly, that declining at this point also guarantees that there will be an opportunity for public input on other properties that they may decide to approach. Am I correct on that? So it gives a higher likelihood of the public having input into the process.
Once they have a site that works for them from a actual geographic perspective, and also they've got the landowner who's willing.
Right.
Then no matter which site it is, there will be the federally required public process.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Shannon, do you have any questions or comments? None at this time. Any other questions or comments? So would anybody care to make a motion on this item? There is a recommended motion in front of us.
Yeah, I'll move that council decline the proposal to have a telecommunication tower placed on town-owned lands, lot 65, MR block 4, plan 9120019, because it's not a preferred site and there may be other more suitable locations available.
All in favor? And that motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is Alberta Municipalities Committee application, sponsored Councillor Boychuk, and who will be speaking to this?
Deputy Mayor, I'll make reference to it. Unfortunately, Councillor Boychuk was not able to attend this evening's meeting. Not a requirement though to address this particular report. Councillor Boychuk is seeking council support to apply to be a member of committee for Alberta municipalities. This request came forward on August 28th. If council would recollect, in earlier August, Councillor Shannon made a similar request, and council made a motion at that time to support this councillor in applying to the Alberta Municipalities Committee. Attached is further information for council's reference, and we're asking for council's direction on this particular request for Councillor Boychuk to apply to Alberta municipalities to join a committee.
Is there any questions or concerns from council, or would somebody care to make a motion? Councillor Good.
And make a motion in support of Councillor Wojciech's request to join the committee of the Alberta municipalities.
All in favor? And that motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is reports, August 30th, 2023, Mercer Peace River Public Advisory Committee meeting minutes. And I believe it's Councillor Scanlon that's on this board.
Yeah, so this group meets approximately 4 times per year. We are long overdue. We had some tours scheduled earlier in the spring when all the fires were kind of busted loose and everything was happening. And so those, a lot of that activity got put on hold till now. So we sort of had a regathering organizational meeting at the end of August. And so we booked a couple things to come in September and October for us to do, one of them being a tour of the Letty Lake area, which will be on September 20th. And then we have another thing going on, probably on the actual Mercer site in October before the end of the year.
Any questions for Councillor Scanlon? Seeing none, would anybody care to make a motion to accept the report for information? Councillor Shannon. Moves that report for information. All in favor? That is carried. Next on the agenda is information item 1, the governance and priorities committee meeting minutes. Is anybody have any questions on those minutes? And item number 2, information, council communication package from September 1st, 2023. Does anybody want to highlight anything from that package? And seeing none, is somebody from council, would they like to move that council accept the items under information 1 and 2 for information? Councillor Carr makes that motion. All in favor? That is carried. Are there any notices of motion? None. I see there will be no comments from the public as there is not anybody in the room. Key communication items. Ms. Parsons?
Did we have much coming from this one?
Yeah, no, pretty short agenda. We have nothing in closed session. So the last motion, would somebody care to move the adjourn? Councillor Scanlon moves we adjourn at 5:28. All in favor? And that is carried. We even beat the time on the GNP by 2 minutes.